The night felt wrong the moment I stepped inside. It was too quiet. Too still. Olivia, my wife of 6 years, had told me she'd be out late with friends. I hadn't thought much of it. But as I set down my briefcase, I noticed something strange, the faint glow of light seeping from under our bedroom door. I frowned. "She's home." That's when I heard it, a soft moan. I froze. The sound was unmistakable. Intimate. A whisper of pleasure slipping past someone's lips. My heart slammed against my ribs. It had to be the TV. Right, I took a slow, measured step forward, my ears straining. Another breathy sound, followed by a hushed giggle. No, this wasn't from a TV, this was real. A shadow moved behind the door. Another soft gasp, every hair on my body stood on end. My fingers curled into fists. I reached for the handle, hesitated for a second, just one, then shoved the door open, and the world stopped. Time didn't slow. It collapsed. The air was thick with heat, tangled sheets, and the unmistakable scent of betrayal. Olivia. My wife. Half naked, with another woman, they scrambled apart in a blur of lins and sheets. Olivia's eyes locked onto mine, wide, guilty, terrified. Rachel, her so-called friend from work, she didn't even look surprised. Just resigned. The silence was deafening. My breath came out in ragged bursts. My chest ached. My stomach twisted into something ugly and unforgiving. "What?" I rasped, my voice hollow. "The hell is this, Ethan?" Olivia's voice cracked as she fumbled for the covers. "It's not. Please, let me explain." "Explain." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh, my vision blurring. "Explain what, Olivia?" "That you've been screwing her behind my back. That you turned our marriage into a goddamn joke." She flinched like I had struck her. Rachel sighed, rubbing a hand down her face. "Liv, you need to tell him the truth." I snapped my head toward her, rage boiling in my veins. "Shut up." Rachel went quiet. But she didn't look ashamed. Not even a little. I turned back to Olivia, my entire body shaking. "How long?" She swallowed hard. "Ethan, please." How long, Olivia?" I roared. Tears filled her eyes. Her lips trembled. "For years," she whispered. The air was sucked out of my lungs. My knees nearly buckled. 4 years. 4 out of the 6 years we had been married. I staggered back, gripping the door frame for support. Jesus Christ, my wife, the woman I vowed to spend my life with, had been lying to me for years. Not months. "Years. You married me," I said hoarsely, staring at her like I didn't even recognize the person in front of me. "Why?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Because I loved you." "I still do." I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Loved me?" My voice was ice. "You don't do this to someone you love, Olivia. You don't let them live in a goddamn fantasy while you..." I stopped, my throat burning. "While you do this," Rachel crossed her arms. "She never wanted to hurt you." My head snapped toward her, rage flooding my system. "Then maybe she shouldn't have cheated for 4 years. Rachel didn't flinch. She had the nerve to look pitying. I turned back to Olivia, my chest heaving. "Tell me the truth. Every single word of it. Right now." She wiped at her face, her whole body trembling. "Ethan," my blood ran cold. "There was more, Olivia," I said, my voice dangerously low. "What else are you hiding?" She let out a shaky breath, her fingers gripping the sheet so tight her knuckles went white, and then she said something that made my world shatter. I stood frozen in the doorway, the weight of Olivia's confession pressing down on me like a boulder. My body felt numb, my mind refusing to process the words she had just spoken. "I'm a lesbian." 3 words. Just 3. And yet, they were enough to destroy everything I thought I knew about my marriage. The woman beside Olivia, brunette, striking, confident, held the sheet against her chest, eyes locked onto mine, as if daring me to react. "What the hell is this, Olivia?" My voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper, but it carried the storm of emotions boiling inside me. Olivia sat up, her face a mixture of shame and defiance. "Ethan, I didn't mean for you to find out this way." "This way?" A bitter laugh erupted from my throat. "So how were you planning to tell me? Over dinner? A text message? Or were you just going to keep lying to me forever?" She winced. "I wasn't lying. You weren't lying?" I barked, stepping further into the room. My pulse pounded in my ears, my hands shaking with adrenaline. "You married me, Olivia. You stood in front of our families, in front of God, and made vows to me. You let me believe we had a real marriage while you were secretly—" I gestured widely to the woman beside her, my voice cracking. "Doing this?" The other woman spoke for the first time. "You should calm down." I snapped my gaze to her. "Who the hell are you?" She squared her shoulders, her expression unreadable. "I'm Rachel." Rachel, the name sounded vaguely familiar. And then it hit me. Olivia's so-called best friend. The one she spent weekends with. The one she texted late at night, smiling at her phone like a teenager in love. Oh, God, how had I been so blind? My stomach twisted. This wasn't a one-time thing. This wasn't something that just happened. This had been going on for years. I turned back to Olivia, my chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. "How long?" Her lips parted, hesitation flickering in her eyes. "Ethan, please, how long?" A single tear slipped down her cheek. "Since before we got married." The world stopped. I took a step back, feeling like I had been punched in the gut. "You mean to tell me, you knew?" My voice wavered, disbelieving. "You knew you were a lesbian before you married me?" Her silence was my answer. The room spun. I reached for the wall to steady myself, bile rising in my throat. This wasn't just betrayal. This was calculated. My marriage had never been real. I had been nothing more than a placeholder, a shield, a lie, and I had wasted 6 years of my life believing Olivia loved me the way I loved her. Rachel shifted uncomfortably. "Ethan, look, I know this is hard." I whipped my head toward her, fury burning through my veins. "Hard? Hard? I just found out my wife has been lying to me for 6 years, and you think you have the right to tell me how I should feel?" Rachel held up her hands. "I'm not the enemy here." "Oh, really?" I scoffed. "Because from where I'm standing, you're the woman who helped my wife cheat on me for God knows how long. That makes you just as bad as her." Rachel clenched her jaw but didn't respond. Olivia sniffled. "Ethan, I swear, I never meant to hurt you." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You never meant to hurt me? Do you even hear yourself? You married me, Olivia. You built a life with me. You let me believe we had something real, while all this time you were in love with someone else." Her face crumpled. I was scared. Scared of what? Coming out? I threw my hands up. "So instead, you used me? Is that it? I was your cover so you wouldn't have to face the truth." She shook her head frantically. "No. She exhaled shakily, gripping the sheets. "I loved you, Ethan. I still do." Rage flared in my chest. "No, Olivia. You never loved me. Because love isn't this." I gestured at the mess in front of me. "Love isn't lying to someone for 6 years. Love isn't pretending to be something you're not." Tears streamed down her face. "I tried, Ethan. I tried to be what you needed. I wanted to make this work. I thought if I ignored it, if I buried those feelings deep enough, they would go away." She sucked in a shaky breath. "But they didn't." I stared at her, my vision blurring. "So what now?" My voice was hollow, empty. She swallowed hard. "I don't know." I turned away, the walls of the bedroom suddenly suffocating. I needed to get out. to breathe, to process the fact that my entire marriage had been nothing more than a beautifully crafted lie. But before I could leave, Olivia said something that made my blood run cold. "There's more, Ethan." I stopped in my tracks, my pulse spiking. "More?" I turned back slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. "What do you mean, there's more?" She hesitated, her hands trembling in her lap. I wasn't just lying to you about my feelings." My breath hitched. "What are you saying?" "Olivia?" Her eyes flickered to Rachel, who gave a small nod. Olivia exhaled shakily and whispered, "I'm pregnant." Silence, thick, deafening, my mind blanked. The words didn't register. Pregnant, pregnant. I stared at her, my mouth suddenly dry. You're pregnant?" She nodded, fresh tears slipping down her cheeks. My knees nearly buckled. Is it mine?" Another silence, then, a single, earth-shattering word, "No." Chill ran down my spine. My heart stopped. I took a step forward, my fingers curling into fists. "Whose is it, Olivia?" She squeezed her eyes shut. "Ethan, please, whose is it?" I roared, her lips trembled. "Rachel's." Everything inside me shattered. "Rachel's, Rachel's, Rachel's." The walls closed in. My chest tightened. My vision blurred. My wife, the woman I had spent 6 years building a life with, was pregnant, and the baby wasn't mine, it was her lover's, and just like that, my world ended. My breath came in sharp, ragged bursts. The words echoed in my head, looping like a broken record. "The baby is Rachel's." I tried to make sense of it, but my mind refused to process the impossible. How the hell is that even possible? My voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of a storm brewing inside me. Olivia wiped at her tear-streaked face. "Ethan, please, don't." I took a step forward, shaking with anger, with confusion, with something raw and ugly clawing at my chest. "You owe me an explanation." Now, she swallowed hard and looked at Rachel, as if seeking permission. Rachel gave her a small nod, and Olivia turned back to me, her hands gripping the sheets as though they were the only thing keeping her from falling apart. I went to a fertility clinic," she whispered, a bitter laugh erupted from my throat. "A fertility clinic?" "Without telling me?" She nodded, her hands trembling. "Rachel and we planned this months ago." My vision darkened at the edges. "So while I was working, while I was busting my ass to provide for us, you were out planning to have a child with someone else?" Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. "I wanted a baby, Ethan. And I wanted it to be with the person I truly loved." Pain, hot and unbearable, burned through my chest. "So what was I? A joke? A safety net? The guy you strung along while you built a secret life with her?" She shook her head violently. "No. It wasn't like that. I cared about you." I let out a humorless chuckle. "Cared about me?" My voice was ice. "You lied to me. You stood in front of me and made vows you had no intention of keeping. And now you're carrying a baby that isn't mine, while still married to me." Rachel, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "We were going to tell you, Ethan." I turned to her, fury boiling over. "Oh, were you? When? Before or after the baby was born?" "After I spent months thinking it was mine." She clenched her jaw but didn't answer. I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my hair. "So that's it, then? You two planned an entire life together behind my back?" Olivia sniffled. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you." Newsflash, Olivia. I met her gaze, my voice steel. "You did hurt me. More than you could ever understand." A long silence filled the room. The weight of everything was suffocating. Then, a new thought struck me. One that sent another jolt of betrayal through my system. Wait a damn minute. I narrowed my eyes. "If you two planned this pregnancy months ago, does that mean you've been sleeping together the entire time?" Rachel exhaled sharply, and Olivia lowered her head in shame. A muscle in my jaw ticked. Unbelievable, I muttered. So I was living a lie for years, and now I find out you've been cheating on me for months, too. Olivia choked back a sob. Ethan, I never meant. Stop saying that. I snapped. Everything you've done was intentional. You chose to lie to me. You chose to betray me. You chose to build a family with her instead of the man you married. Silence, thick. Heavy. Finally, Olivia looked up, her face crumbling. I'm sorry, that's all she had to say. I laughed bitterly. Sorry won't fix this, Olivia. Nothing will. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. I needed to get out before I suffocated. Without another word, I turned and stormed toward the door. Ethan, wait. Olivia cried, scrambling out of bed. Please, we need to talk about this. I stopped at the doorway, gripping the frame so tightly my knuckles turned white. There's nothing left to talk about. My voice was cold, final. You made your choice, Olivia. Now you have to live with it, and with that, I walked out. I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was that I needed to get as far away from her as possible. The drive felt endless. The city lights blurred past me, but I barely registered them. My mind was a war zone, every thought a landmine waiting to explode. How could I have been so blind? How did I not see this coming? Every late-night text. Every girl's trip. Every time Olivia seemed distant but refused to talk about it. The signs were there. I had just been too stupid to connect the dots. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my hands clammy. What the hell was I supposed to do now? Divorce was the obvious answer. There was no way I could stay in a marriage built on this level of betrayal. But the thought of signing those papers, of letting go of 6 years of my life, made my chest ache. I pulled into an empty parking lot, resting my head against the steering wheel, and then, like a cruel joke from the universe, my phone buzzed. Text from Olivia. Olivia, Ethan, please come home. We need to talk. I clenched my jaw, my vision blurring. I should ignore it. I should block her number and move on. But then another text came through. Olivia, there's something else you don't know. A chill ran down my spine. Something else. What more could she possibly say? My hands trembled as I hovered over the screen. I had a choice to make. Go back and hear the rest of the truth, or walk away and never look back. I exhaled sharply, my heart pounding. Whatever Olivia had to say next, it was going to change everything. I stared at Olivia's text, my fingers hovering over my phone. There's something else you don't know. My pulse pounded in my ears. I had already endured enough for one night. What could possibly be worse than what she had already confessed? I knew I should ignore her. Move on, and never look back. But something inside me, the part of me that had spent 6 years loving her, needed to know. With a deep breath, I started the car and turned around. When I reached the house, I hesitated at the door. The place that once felt like home now felt foreign, tainted. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Olivia was sitting on the couch, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Rachel was nowhere in sight. She stood up the moment she saw me. Ethan, talk. My voice was cold, detached. You said there's something else I don't know. So spill it. She hesitated, wringing her hands. I don't even know where to start. Try the beginning, I said bitterly, crossing my arms. Unless lying has become second nature to you. She flinched, but nodded. Ethan. I was never supposed to marry you. My stomach twisted. What the hell does that mean? She took a deep breath. When I was younger, my parents were very strict. They wanted me to have a normal life. When I told them I liked women, they flipped out. My mother cried for weeks. My father threatened to cut me off. She looked up at me with pleading eyes. I was scared, Ethan. My parents told me I would never be accepted, that I would ruin my life if I didn't marry a man. And then you came along. I clenched my fists. So I was your escape plan. Tears welled in her eyes. I told myself that if I married you, if I pushed my real feelings deep enough, I could be what my parents wanted. I thought I could be happy with you, and yet you were sleeping with Rachel the entire time." My voice was laced with venom. She shook her head. "Not in the beginning. I tried, Ethan. I really did. I convinced myself that I loved you the way a wife should love her husband. And for a while, I believed it. I let out a humorless laugh. Until what? You got tired of pretending," she sniffled. "I met Rachel a year into our marriage. At first, we were just friends. But the more time I spent with her, the more I realized I could never change who I was." My jaw tightened. "So instead of being honest with me, you let me waste 6 years of my life on a marriage that was never real." She wiped at her tears. "I didn't know how to tell you without losing everything. My family, my stability. I was a coward, Ethan." I shook my head, feeling disgusted. "So what now? You're finally ready to live your truth. And I'm just supposed to accept it and walk away?" Her lips trembled. "I don't expect anything from you. I needed you to know the full truth." I stared at her, my heart pounding with a mixture of rage and devastation. "Well, congratulations, Olivia. You finally did one honest thing in our marriage." She winced, but I didn't care. I turned to leave, but then another thought hit me. I stopped at the doorway, my fingers curling into fists. "You said your parents forced you into this marriage," I said, my voice dangerously low. "Do they know about Rachel?" She hesitated. "No," a slow, bitter smile spread across my lips. "Then I guess they're about to find out." Her eyes widened in panic. "Ethan, wait," but I was already gone. She had spent years controlling the narrative, making me the fool in her perfect little lie. Now it was my turn to rewrite the story, and I was going to make damn sure she felt every ounce of the betrayal she had inflicted on me. I gripped the steering wheel tightly as I drove, my mind spiraling with thoughts of betrayal and payback. Olivia had lied to me, used me, trapped me in a fake marriage while living a secret life behind my back. And now, after 6 years, she thought she could just tell me the truth and walk away without consequences. No, if she thought she could manipulate me and still keep her perfect life intact, she was dead wrong. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. My fingers hovered over her mother's number. I had always been close to Olivia's parents, especially her father. He had treated me like the son he never had. Did he know, or was he just another fool in Olivia's grand deception? My anger boiled over, and before I could second-guess myself, I hit call. The phone rang twice before Mrs. Carter picked up. "Ethan, dear. It's so late. Is everything okay?" I took a deep breath. "Mrs. Carter. I think you need to sit down." I sat in the Carters' grand living room, watching as Olivia's father paced back and forth, his face red with fury. Her mother sat on the couch, eyes filled with silent horror. "Tell me this is a joke, Ethan." Mr. Carter's voice trembled with barely contained rage. "Tell me you're lying." I leaned back, arms crossed. "I wish I was." Mrs. Carter clutched her chest. "Our daughter. A lesbian?" She looked at me, eyes pleading. "But she married you. She has a husband." "That doesn't make any sense." I let out a bitter laugh. "Well, apparently, she married me to hide the truth. She's been with Rachel for years. And now she's pregnant, with Rachel's baby." Mr. Carter slammed his fist on the table. "That ungrateful little. After everything we did for her." Mrs. Carter turned to me, her voice shaking. "Where is she now?" I checked my watch. "Probably still at home with Rachel." Enjoying their little victory, Mrs. Carter stood up abruptly. "We're going over there now," I smirked. "Perfect." The moment Olivia opened the door and saw her parents standing behind me, she paled. "Mom. Dad." Her voice cracked. "Don't you mom me." Mr. Carter stormed past her into the house. "What the hell is this, Olivia?" Rachel appeared from the hallway, her face instantly wary. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter. This isn't what you think." "Shut up." Mr. Carter barked. He turned to Olivia, his fists shaking. You lied to us. You humiliated this family. Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. Dad, enough. He pointed a trembling finger at her. I did not raise a liar. You are no daughter of mine. Her mother gasped. Gerald, no. He cut her off, his voice shaking. She tricked us. Tricked him. He gestured to me. She ruined an innocent man's life. Rachel stepped forward. You don't understand, sir. Olivia was afraid, and you, Mr. Carter seethed, turning on Rachel. You corrupted my daughter. You destroyed our family. Rachel's face hardened. Your daughter was always this way. You just didn't want to see it. Mr. Carter's face twisted in rage. Get out, Rachel frowned. Excuse me? You both are no longer welcome in this family. His voice was cold as steel. As far as I'm concerned, my daughter died the day she decided to disgrace us. Olivia let out a choked sob. Dad, please. He turned his back on her. I don't have a daughter anymore, and just like that, Olivia's entire world crumbled. The following days were chaos. Olivia's parents cut her off completely. No more financial support. No more access to their estate. She had gone from being the family's golden girl to a disgrace overnight. Meanwhile, I filed for divorce. The day she received the papers, she showed up at my office, her face hollow. Ethan, please, she whispered. I know I hurt you. But... Her voice broke. I have nothing left. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. For the first time, she looked small. Vulnerable. You made your choice, Olivia, I said calmly. Now you have to live with it. Tears ran down her cheeks, but I felt nothing. I had loved her once. Given her my trust, my devotion, and she had shattered it. There was no going back. There was only moving forward. Without her, months passed. The divorce was finalized. Olivia and Rachel moved to a small apartment, struggling to rebuild their lives. As for me, I healed. Slowly. Painfully. But I healed. One day, as I walked through the city, I saw Olivia from a distance. She looked different. Thinner. Tired, but when she looked at Rachel, her eyes were full of love. I sighed, shaking my head. Maybe she had found her truth, but it had cost her everything, and I was finally free.
Please subscribe, like, comment and share this video. It means a lot to us. Thank you.